So today we're talking about privacy and GDPR compliance for Workplace Analytics and MyAnalytics. My name's Peter, this is Deepak. We're both program managers on the Workplace Analytics and MyAnalytics team. Before we get started, how many of you guys are actively using Workplace Analytics? Okay, awesome. How about MyAnalytics? Okay, a little bit more. And also, how many of you guys came to our session yesterday? Okay, good.
All right.
So before we get started, a really quick intro. So somebody challenged us to see how we could connect our passion for rock climbing to data privacy and GDPR compliance. So we're going to attempt to do that. What we're talking about today is how to embark on this adventure of getting all this new collaboration data and insights out of everyday work as your company gets work done in Office 365. And as you do that, you have to, there are risks that come along with it, and you have to make sure that you sort of equip yourself in the right way. So Deepak and I, we love big epic adventures, but we always make sure that we're bringing the right gear, that we manage risk, and that we're safe about it. And that's really what this session is about. We want to help you understand how Workplace and Analytics and MyAnalytics were built in a way that keeps your data private. Right? Trust is extremely important for us. I want you to enable you guys to go back home, go back to your companies and deploy these tools in a way that honors your organization's privacy and compliance principles. And we want to equip you to answer all of the common questions that will likely come up as you go about deploying these tools. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to give a really brief intro for those of you who aren't very familiar with these applications. We're going to talk about Workplace Analytics and MyAnalytics at a high level, why we built these tools. I'll do a really quick demo. And then most of the session, Deepak's going to walk you guys through in a lot of detail how we built these tools to be private and compliant, and also all of the various controls that you have to make sure that these applications are deployed in a way that honors your organization's privacy and compliance principles. So let's talk about why we built these apps. So our goal here is to enable you to transform your organization's culture with data. The reason that's important is because when companies try to transform, when they go through a digital transformation or they try to, you might want to build a more agile culture, get rid of hierarchy so you can make decisions faster, you can compete with AI and data-driven startups. Companies that focus on culture are a lot more likely to succeed in these. And the reason for that is that when it comes down to it, individual employees' behavior really needs to change, right? So a lot of transformations fail simply because individual behavior doesn't change. And we think by bringing data to this challenge, and also AI and nudging, we can actually help people, help you guys and help individual employees change their behavior so that your company can actually transform. So let me give you a couple concrete examples of what this looks like in practice. So first, this is a story about teamwork. So one of the most common problems with teamwork is collaboration overload. How many of you guys have been in a meeting in the past month and you felt like you didn't need to be there? All right. If you didn't raise your hand, you might have been on vacation. We've all had this problem. And it's extremely common. So collaboration overload is this phenomenon where people spend way too much time in meetings they don't necessarily need to sit in, where they're CC'd on emails, and all of this excess collaboration just eats up a huge amount of organizations' time. So we worked with one customer. This story actually comes from Macy's. And they matched up collaboration trends and patterns in their organization to their employee engagement survey. How many of you guys run employee engagement surveys at your company? All right. Everybody should also be raising their hands. Extremely common. All companies do this. So what we did with Macy's is we wanted to see if there's a correlation between collaboration trends and employee engagement outcomes. We found that there's a direct negative correlation between a lot of these collaboration patterns and how people felt about their teams. So they said that when they sit in a lot of meetings that are really large, so have 21 or more attendees, that has a negative impact on their engagement with their team and their ability to innovate at their company. Same thing with the percent of recurring meetings that they sat in, and also their access to their manager is really important. We find this pretty consistently, that when people feel like they have managers they can talk to, that connect them to the rest of the company, that has a really positive impact on all these indicators. So, but with Macy's, we didn't just get all these great findings. We also, we use tools like MyAnalytics, which I'll show you in just a few minutes, to actually try to impact some of these collaboration patterns. So by the end of this particular program, we were able to cut meeting hours by 4 hours per person per week, help people get more focus time, and reduce organizational load. So there are ways to solve these problems when you identify these opportunities. Another quick story. So we do a lot of work with sales teams. And what we find pretty consistently is that the best sales reps that consistently exceed their quota have very specific collaboration patterns. So 3 quick examples. Top performers in sales teams tend to obviously have more time spent with customers. That one makes sense. They also get more time with upper management and senior leaders in their company. And lastly, they also have bigger internal networks. So you might think that sales reps need to just constantly be talking to customers, but one thing that we find pretty consistently is that sales reps also need to network internally so that they have access to resources, to best practices, and they have access to leaders who have lots and lots of experience. So again, we don't just like to just give our customers data and help them discover these opportunities. We want to act on it. So we designed a program where we tried to get teams to adopt these new habits. And for the teams that did adopt them, they saw a pretty significant gain in quota attainment, which you can see here. And that had pretty large financial impact. The teams that adopted these behaviors outperformed teams that did not by about $237 million total. So these are just a couple quick transformation stories. And just wanted to highlight that there are a ton of ways to use this data that we make available to you through Workplace Analytics and MyAnalytics. We like to break it down into 3 different categories. The first is creating capacity. This is about identifying inefficiencies and how work gets done and then addressing them. So the collaboration overload story that we went through is a really common one in this bucket. It's about finding opportunities to make better use of your organization's time. The second category is growing mastery. So this is about figuring out what do your best people do, what do your top performers do, what do your best managers and sales reps do, and how do you spread that to the rest of the organization. And then lastly, orchestrating networks is about unleashing the latent value of teams, of networks at your company, making sure that ideas are flowing, that teams are connected, that your workspaces are planned in a way that maximizes collaboration between teams that should be talking to each other. So we have lots and lots of deep use cases on all of these, and we'll give you guys some resources if you want to learn more about all of these different levers that this data gives you. Let's jump into the actual products before I hand it over to Deepak to talk about privacy and compliance. So we have two products that we're talking about today, Workplace Analytics and MyAnalytics. Workplace Analytics provides you aggregate trend-level data on how your company gets work done so that you can actually start to run your company with behavioral insights on how people actually get work done. And then you can start to drive culture change, just like we started to show you in some of those transformation stories earlier. The second product is MyAnalytics. So MyAnalytics is a tool for your end users. We think of it as like a fitness tracker for work. So it gives your end users personal productivity insights on how they personally get work done. It helps them do things like get more focus time, get better work-life balance, improve their relationships. And we also have this new set of features that we call nudges that helps people make better decisions in the context of their work. So let's go ahead and do a quick demo of these, and then I'll hand it over to Deepak. So I'm going to start with MyAnalytics. So there are a couple different surfaces in MyAnalytics. Again, we think of it as a fitness tracker for work. So this is the personal dashboard, and when you assign a MyAnalytics license to one of your users, this is one of the core elements of the application. So they'll all get access to this personal dashboard. Only the end user sees this information. And what it's doing, it's helping them understand how they spend their time at work and who they spend it with, and giving them insights on how they can work smarter, how they can get more done in less time, how they can get more time for high-quality focus work. So you can see up here, how much time do you spend in meetings, how much high-quality focus time do you get, how much time are you working after hours. We also try to help people interpret this data. So we provide little insights and and tips on how to act on some of this information. So for example, we talked earlier about so in the collaboration overload story, one of the things we found is that manager access is really important. So we find consistently that when people meet one-on-one with their manager, when they have consistent weekly one-on-one time, that they tend to be more engaged and more effective. So we give people little nudges when they've gone a few weeks without meeting with their manager, saying, hey, just book a weekly check-in. We also point out meeting redundancy. So if you've been spending a lot of time in meetings with the same person, you might as well divide and conquer. We also show you who you're spending your time with. We provide a network map so you can see if you're over or under investing in certain relationships. We point out meeting habits that could make the meetings that you spend a lot of time in more or less effective. So for example, a really easy one for a lot of people to understand is multitasking. This is based on whether you're sending emails and chats in meetings that aren't related to the meeting that you're in. And so we're trying to point out these habits that if you address them, right, if you stop multitasking, if you bring agendas to meetings, if you try to schedule shorter meetings, you can make a lot better use of your time at work. So that's the personal dashboard. We also are very connected with Outlook. One of the things we're trying to do is bring these insights into the flow of work. So we have this feature called nudging, where you'll get these insights as you get work done so you can make better decisions in the context of your work. So let's say we get a meeting invite for the upcoming week. MyAnalytics notices that we already have a lot of meetings on the calendar. What it will do, it'll surface a little tip here right on the meeting invite that says, hey, looks like you have a lot of meetings next week already. Do you want to just set aside some time for focused work? So you can click See Available Times. It'll surface all of the remaining blocks of 2 hours of open space on your calendar. And you can block those off with just a couple clicks. Right, so now people can go from sort of reactively managing their calendar and realizing last minute they have no time to get their work done during the day, to actually proactively protecting their time. The last thing I wanted to highlight in MyAnalytics, we send a weekly digest email. So we put this information at the top of your inbox every Monday. So you get all of the core insights that can help you act on this information. How much time, what's your balance between collaboration and focus time? What are some insights on how you can act on this data? Who are your top collaborators? So that's MyAnalytics. And again, the idea, it's like a fitness tracker for work. We're trying to help people get more focus, get better work-life balance, improve their relationships. Only end users see this information. Managers can't access it, and Deepak's going to go into that in a lot more detail. Now let me jump over to workplace analytics. So with workplace analytics, we're taking a very similar data set, but we're aggregating it and providing a trend level view across the company. So in this case, in this tenant, 2,000 employees have been licensed for workplace analytics. And again, as Deepak will explain, you have complete control over who gets licensed for this and also who gets access to this workbench, right? So in this case, as an analyst, I can see some high-level pieces of information on how these 2,000 employees get work done. So if I go into the Explore tab, one of the things I can do is see what a week in the life of an average employee looks like. So what's happening here, it's breaking down collaboration hours, and it's summarizing weekly averages. So if you look at this chart down here, it's breaking down collaboration time by job function. So how much time do sales and marketing spend collaborating each week versus other departments, as an example. You can slice and dice this data however you want, depending on the HR attributes that you bring into this tool. So workplace analytics, it's drawing on data from everyday work in Office 365, so things like emails and meetings. But you can also slice and dice all of this information based on any HR profile attributes that you bring into the tool. Like, for example, job function or geography or employee level at the company. We can see not just collaboration hours, but after-hours collaboration to see if there are certain teams that are spending a sort of above average amount of time working after hours. The next thing that you can do is get an understanding of meetings at your company. And one of the things that we do is we give you an estimate of how much of your human resources are you draining away by having people sit in low-quality meetings. Right? So this organization is spending about, over this time frame, the past year, has spent about $10 million in low-quality meetings. That's based on things like multitasking, having a lot of redundancy in the meeting, and conflicting meeting hours. Right? We also provide insights on management and coaching, are managers getting enough one-on-one time with their reports, on networks at the company, on external collaboration. And all of this data is infinitely queryable. So if you go into the Queries tab, you can, again, slice and dice however you want, depending on the data that you bring in, and export this to Excel, connect it with Power BI dashboards so that you can do more advanced visualizations, see more advanced correlations and patterns in the data. With that being said, I'm going to end the demo and hand it over to Deepak.
All right, thanks, Peter. All right, just a quick show of hands. How many of you here are your tenant admins for your organization? All right, anybody who works as the privacy officers for your organization? All right, okay, we've got a good mix of tenant admins and privacy. So I'm sure you guys have seen Office 365 trust and compliance sessions. The most important point I want to make is MyAnalytics and Workplace Analytics are part of Office 365. And it's baked into Office 365, is as much a part of Office 365 as email is. In fact, MyAnalytics, for example, is your mailbox. Everything you see in MyAnalytics has the exact same security, privacy settings as your email. So when you trust that only you can see your email, it means only you can see your email, and it means only you can see the stuff that you see in MyAnalytics. It's the same stuff. So everything that you see as part of Office 365, your built-in security, privacy, and compliance, all about what are the access that the engineers have, the Microsoft engineers have, just-in-time access, trust, all of those things apply to both these products because they are part of Office 365. All right. Peter touched on a few points over here, and I just want to stress that again, which is only the user sees their data. The data is stored and processed in the user's mailbox. And the other important question that we keep getting asked is, can the users opt in or opt out of MyAnalytics? And I'll delve a little deeper into that. They can. And then finally, we've spent a lot of time over the past 2 years making sure that we support all the GDPR requirements. And by that, what I mean is, if there is a breach, we will notify. We'll obviously try to prevent breaches because it's part of Office 365 security. If a user wants to export, delete, or stop processing, we support all of those things. And so all the stuff that needs GDPR requirements, both MyAnalytics and Workplace Analytics meet. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the end as well. All right, let's talk about the data itself. One of the things that people see when they see MyAnalytics for the first time is, hey, this is really cool data, but who else has access to this data, and how did you compute this data? The compute is actually quite simple. You can do it yourself if you wanted to. You go ahead to your weekly meeting, add up all your meeting invites, and see that's exactly what you will see in MyAnalytics. It's just that we're making it much easier. If you look at the amount of time that you're spending on emails, you add up all the time that you're sending, receiving emails, and you add that up, that is what your email time is. You count all those emails, you get your email count. So all we're doing is aggregating the data that is already in your mailbox, right? So it is not net new data that you see. Everything that you see is in your mailbox. There are a couple of exceptions to that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. When Peter showed you, the focus time that you're spending and what your group average is, and the group average over here is pretty much the average of your organization. There again, when we compute those averages, the most important thing we do is we de-identify all the users. So it's all the users in your organization. We average out the focus hours, and we show you yours versus the group average. There again, the most important thing is that you cannot see and you cannot determine who the other people are in the group. There's one more feature that we have, which is read rates. And this is typically an example of, that privacy officers keep getting asked, which is, hey, as the person who's looking at my analytics, you don't have access to how many people read your mail, which is absolutely right. But we think that this is a really useful feature because we want to know if the time that you're spending writing emails is actually useful. And so if you look at that, though, we do a very intentional design of not showing how many people read it, but just a percentage. It's either high, medium, or low. And so that's a very important intentional design that we've done. And so these are examples that you can go back to people who ask you privacy questions in your organization and tell them about the intentional design that we've done. So point one, the stuff that you see is stuff that you can compute yourself. Point two, the stuff that you cannot see is aggregated, de-identified, and intentional by design. All right, let's talk about the other example, that email that you get as part of MyAnalytics. Even that is not sent using typical email criteria, which is it doesn't go through a server, it doesn't go through a transport pipeline, and reaches your mailbox. This actually originates within your own mailbox. We wrote special code for this so that there isn't a transient server that has access to that data. Again, super important privacy by design. We wanted to make sure that everything stayed in your mailbox. There is no email server that has access to that data that you see in your email. So there's nobody who can come in and intercept that particular email. So that is by design as well. And then the other important thing that we do is we actually try to remind users, wherever they are, we try to tell them, hey, this is privacy by design everywhere. So you see it in the dashboard, you see it in the email, you see it in the welcome email, in the digest email, and we mean it. And we want your users to be comfortable with that, right? And so this is where I want to take the point of checking with you guys, how many of you are trying to roll out MyAnalytics or want to roll out MyAnalytics in your organization? Just a quick show of hands. All right, and have you guys been facing questions on privacy? And is that a reason why you've not been able to roll it out? Or is that the final step before a rollout? Yes? You had a, yeah? Right? And one of the things that keeps coming up is, what if I want to, my users are not comfortable with rolling out MyAnalytics? And it keeps coming up often again. And for this, we've seen customers who have deployed MyAnalytics, and success for them has come from being proactive in contacting their users. You tell your users, hey, this is a product that we really believe in. This can be part of our cultural transformation. We believe that it'll bring tremendous value to both you and the organization. But we understand that if you're uncomfortable, you can help opt out of it. But having that conversation ahead of time, rather than turning it on first and then saying, hey, do you guys like this? Or going straight to privacy, not a privacy forward approach, it kind of hurts the deployment of MyAnalytics and workplace analytics. And this we've seen over and over again with our customers, so try to be more proactive. Now, for those users who say, I don't want to be part of this, what do you do? So let me walk you through the steps of how you actually configure MyAnalytics. So let me come out of this and actually show you what it does. It's great. All right. First up, MyAnalytics, as you know, is part of Office 365 E5. So when you go to a user, you can go here and just turn on MyAnalytics. So every time you turn on Enterprise E5, Office 365, you will see that Microsoft MyAnalytics is right here. Typically, what people do is, when you turn on E5, you turn on MyAnalytics as well. Now, what that actually does is it doesn't turn on MyAnalytics automatically to the end users. There is a second step involved with MyAnalytics. So if your users went into their MyAnalytics dashboard at that point of time, they will see this, which is you've got the MyAnalytics license, but in order for you to actually get this processing done, you need to go turn it on, right? And this is called the feature setting. And so if you go into the feature setting and you set this up and you say, I want to turn on MyAnalytics, and I go hit save. Sorry, IE just crashed on me. But imagine that if the user actually goes there and does the feature setting and turns on MyAnalytics, that is the point in time where the dashboard and the digest emails and the nudges all of those features light up. So I just turned it on. There you go. So it's a two-step process. Step 1, assign the license. Step 2, opt in. Now, this opt-in can be done by both the user or the admin themselves. And for the admin to do it is pretty straightforward. Again, what I have here is PowerShell Exchange. So if you look at this, I have Brian, who's a user in my organization, and I want to get what Brian's user analytics config is. It's really easy right now. I don't know what's going on, but if you see the examples up here, you see that get analytics config will tell you exactly whether the user is opted in or opted out by default. And you can go change that. And that particular setting is controllable by all admins. So if you want to turn on MyAnalytics by default, you can keep it on always, or you can turn it off and let the user turn it on. So this also satisfies the GDPR requirement of stop processing. It's really easy for the end users to do. They can just go turn off MyAnalytics in the dashboard like I showed you. There is also the additional setting that we have for the end users to turn on or turn off the digest emails. It's really easy to go unsubscribe from the digest email. All right. So these are the steps that I just walked you through. Once licenses are assigned, 1 to 3 days, and then the opt-in. All right. From a privacy impact assessment standpoint, what are the most common questions that you get asked? This is based on all of our communications with customers who want to deploy MyAnalytics because they see the value of deploying MyAnalytics. What are the types of information? We have Exchange email and calendar. We've got Skype, both IMs and chats. And eventually, we'll be getting Teams. And we're also working on getting OneDrive and a bunch of other Office 365 signals. But again, all of this, since we are part of Office 365, it has complete trust coverage. It has complete privacy and security coverage. The next question is, will this ever be shared with third parties? The answer is a simple no. This data is available only to the end user and to nobody else. Same thing again with the third question, only the end user sees their data. So that's pretty much MyAnalytics. Any questions regarding MyAnalytics at this point, MyAnalytics privacy? All good? Yeah, please. Yes, please. I'll take one, and then I'll move on to workplace analytics.
Sorry, I have 2 questions, so I hope I can get through them. So the first one, do I understand correctly from what you said that when you're reporting the analytics on meeting time, it's on planned meeting time as opposed to meetings that may have just occurred? So I have an unplanned meeting, someone calls me up on Skype, I go into that meeting for 30 minutes, I'm talking to them. That doesn't come up in the analytics report because it wasn't on my calendar.
That is accurate right now, and therefore, but once we bring in the Skype signals, for example, those will become better. One of the things that we have seen is, and Peter mentioned this, it's the trend of data that we're looking for. Now, at a MyAnalytics standpoint, yes, we openly say that this is based on your calendar data, so which means if you see that particular invite, you've accepted that invite, only then it counts. Ad hoc meetings, at this point, we are not able to get it in, but eventually, once we get the Skypes and Teams signals in, we should be able to get that in as well.
Okay, great. And my second question, you talked about sort of getting acceptance within the organization for this. Have you got any tips on how to deal with like European workers' councils about getting them to accept the fact that this is what's going to happen and we're going to be collecting data on people?
So that is the reason why we're doing this session, of course. Mm-hmm. No, so the point I'm trying to make, again, for those kinds of statements is go back to them with all the stuff we just showed you. We're not collecting information on people. There is the data that you see in MyAnalytics is only visible to them and to them alone, right? Now, every time this comes up in the Workers' Council, again, this is what we keep saying. And so, again, if there's a specific question that you're concerned about, you can come ask us afterwards.
Okay, yep. Yeah, well, because the way that you were just talking about before, how you can feed in different data and then you can split the...
Yeah, that's workplace analytics, so yeah. Let me talk through that now.
Okay, sure.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so everybody understands MyAnalytics, visible only to you, and it is the Fitbit for you at work. Now, workplace analytics, as Peter pointed out, this is where you have the aggregate information, right? So let me walk you through a little bit of what that means. So same thing, it's within the trust boundary, and it satisfies all the GDPR requirements. Typically, workplace analytics is run by a business sponsor. So we've seen a lot of success within IT organizations where they start to pilot workplace analytics. We've also seen it with HR. We've seen it with transformation, business transformation initiatives. We've seen it within finance, and we've seen it within sales. But the important thing is there is a leader in your organization, or there are leaders in your organization who sponsor workplace analytics. And the people using workplace analytics are more of the business analysts, and therefore we'll talk a little bit about the roles. But the important point I want to say over here is the people who have access to workplace analytics are typically the same kind of people who work with your HR systems. How many of you have HR people in your organizations who have access to your compensation data, for example? Show of hands. I mean, everyone does, right? You trust them because they've gone through the training. You trust them because they are going to be trained and do the right thing with that data. And it's the same kind of requirement that you have for analysts who use workplace analytics. With workplace analytics, one of the more important points that I want to make is we only use header-level metadata. We don't actually scan the body of the email. We don't scan any attachments that are in the email or calendar. You have the ability to control what gets analyzed, and so this is private emails, confidential emails, right, managed stuff. None of these will get analyzed. So if you have a contract with an organization that is a higher security bar, then you can go into workplace analytics and set it up so that it doesn't have to be analyzed as part of WPA. And then finally, the most important thing, and this is the question that keeps getting asked by Workers' Council, is that the data that you see in workplace analytics cannot be traced back to individuals. The focus is on aggregate. If it doesn't meet the minimum group size, you will not be able to even view any insights on that group. And I'll show you examples of that. All right, so lots of IT admins in the room, so I'll talk a little bit about workplace analytics roles. We have two major roles over here, the admin who helps set up workplace analytics, and the analyst who actually gets to see the insights that you get as part of workplace analytics. And it's the analyst I'll talk about a little bit later, but the admin primarily does the settings and what you call organizational data. And organizational data is nothing but your HR data, and I'll show you a little bit. Whereas your analyst is the guy or the person who actually comes in and does the insights. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what the admin does as part of setting up workplace analytics. So if you see over here, let me stop this animation. Seems to be going on by itself. Sorry, 1 second. You guys can still see what's over here, right? Yeah, okay. So top of your screen, what you see is what the admin has to upload as part of the workplace analytics role. It's a two-step process. Step one, you license all your employees who you want to be part of the workplace analytics analysis. So let's say you have 10,000 employees in your organization. You have 2,000 employees in the sales org, and those are the people that you want to run the pilot on. So you license those 2,000 employees. Office 365 automatically uploads or automatically starts analyzing the data for those 10,000 employees from their email and calendar. Now, at that point, though, all we have is just collaboration data. But for it to make sense for the sales director, for example, where the sales director wants to see, okay, who are these people who are working with each other? What are their network sizes with each other? Are we spending too much time on internal collaboration that is not very useful? For those kinds of insights, you do need to upload the simple HR file. And what you see over there is an example of that HR file where there is the person ID who is the employee in sales. You've got their level. They're either directors or individual contributors. and which part of the organization do they belong to, right? Simple HR data, we have 6 required fields that help you get jump-started on the analysis. Once the admin does that, the job is done pretty much, because at that point, the product is going to light up. And when the product lights up, the kind of stuff that the analyst is able to see at the end of it is aggregated information like this, or it'll be individual rows for the persons, but the person IDs are all obfuscated. They're hashed, and there's no way for anybody to get back to who that person ID is, right? So it's a very, very important feature of workplace analytics. There is no way for you to identify who that person is. Go back to slideshow mode. And if you see over here, the aggregates that we showed earlier, what Peter showed, for example, you see that the executives and the senior executives, simply because there aren't enough people in that band for this particular organization, you cannot actually see what their collaboration numbers are. It's a very important part of the privacy by design statement.
So what is that number?
You will not be able to tell you.
What's the number that
Oh, yeah, got it. Yeah, so let me talk a little bit more about that. So you just saw this user anonymization and output. There is no way to get back to who that individual user is. We've got that. The setting is called minimum group size, and I'll walk you through that. And I'll walk you through all of these things. All right, so never individual data. It's always aggregated. And the admin can actually use the admin settings page to do this. So let me walk you through what that looks like, because a demo will be a much better way of showing you this. All right, so if you're the workplace admin, when you come in here for the first time, you will be able to do these settings. So once your licenses are assigned, you go to the next page, and then you get to the privacy settings page. So if you see here, the first setting that you see is the minimum group size. And so by default, it's 5, but you will be able to set this to as high as you want. We've seen people set it at 15, at 20, but 5 is what comes out of the box. We've got a bunch of other settings over here, such as hide the subject line, so you cannot do any sort of topic analysis if you don't want to. What I talked about earlier, if you have any domains that you don't want to do any integrations with, you avoid that. And if you don't want certain people to be part of the analysis, again, you can exclude those people. These are terms that you can avoid as part of the analysis as well. So privacy settings, you do that right up front, and you can control them as you go along when you do workplace analytics. So we talked about those. We also have this option of saying when you actually output the data. So remember I showed you this output data file where you have that person ID, and that person ID also has the other HR attributes in the output file. You have the option to say, I want to hash that output column as well. So all sorts of privacy features are built in, and depending on your organization's requirements, you can go in and control these features and make sure that any sort of privacy-related requirements are met using the product. And again, with your analysts, I keep stressing this point over and over again, is that they need to be at the same level of training as the people handling your HR and compensation data. All right. We've also got scope, but I'll skip through that for now because we are running a little low on time. So I will go through the common questions that people ask when it comes to privacy impact assessments as part of workplace analytics. Again, the same question, what is the type of information? So today it's simply Exchange Online and calendar activity. Eventually we'll bring in Skype and Teams and all that kind of stuff. We will not be sharing this with anyone. Who will have access to the data is the analysts, and they are, again, they need to meet your training. And then the last question about opt-in for workplace analytics, this is where, the point I made earlier about being more open and being transparent with your employees is really important, because this is the feature where you need them to opt in outside of the product first. They need to be aware of what this is being used for. And the people who do it right, we've got a lot of customers who've done that proactive, and they see that 95% of the users are perfectly willing to be part of the workplace analytics analysis. So the important lesson over there is be proactive with your users. There is this slide that I've put in here because it's an important thing when it comes to workplace analytics. It is also important to work with your organization's legal team and workers' councils. You asked that question earlier, be transparent. You can use the content from this deck. You can go talk to them about that. All right, quick end with GDPR. So with GDPR, we've got three major personas. The first one is the employee, the individual EU resident. How many of you here are from the EU? Just quick show of hands. All right, good number. All right. So you guys know the basics of GDPR, but here it's really important that the controller over here is the Office 365 Enterprise customer, and Microsoft is the processor, because this is all part of Office 365. As controller, you have these three big obligations, which is security, notification in case of a breach, and then the data subject request. Quickly go through them. Both Workplace Analytics and MyAnalytics, we satisfy all the big security requirements. Our data is encrypted at rest and in motion. It's guaranteed security, the same level of security that you get with Office 365. When there is a breach, we will ensure that the Office 365 incident response team gets notified. We've built all of that into the product, so within 72 hours, the people who do end up being part of the breach will get the full notification. Again, same level of security and compliance that you would expect from anybody breaching your email, because it is part of Office 365. And then finally, honoring your data subject requests. This is a very useful slide. So I've heard a few people in Germany, for example, how do I do the export, how do I do the stop, and how do I do the delete or the forget user data? Again, pretty straightforward. For the export, for example, you go to the Office 365 eDiscovery Admin Center, and then use the export feature over there, and you will see MyAnalytics as part of the export itself over there. So again, very straightforward. All of this is documented in aka.ms/trust. Workplace Analytics and MyAnalytics, there is a big section in the Office 365 document on how to actually go about handling data subject requests, for example. So core tenets, again, repeating this over and over again so that you go talk to your privacy officers, end user sees their data, any data that the end user sees that is aggregated is de-identified, and when we talk about summarized data, it can never be traced back to individuals. We design all our features based on these core tenets. If there's any feature that we feel that may surface individuals' information, we cut that feature. We don't go about building those features. And we've had customers come to us and what about this scenario? This will be very useful. Can we get managers to have access to our employees' data? We were like, no, because that breaks this core tenet. So it's really, really important that everyone understands that the data cannot be traced back to individuals, and individuals have access to only their own data, right? Now, I do want to end on a positive note, which is all the stuff that Peter talked about earlier, which is we think that all of these features, Workplace Analytics and MyAnalytics, they are extremely useful. We've seen it. Peter and I use it. Natalie uses it. We're all passionate users of both these features. We've seen it transform our lives. I've definitely gotten at least 4 to 6 hours of focus time more every week since I've started using MyAnalytics. We deployed solutions, and that has reduced after hours in our organization. We've deployed sales excellence in Microsoft, and we've seen a direct correlation with our sales revenue going up, our customer satisfaction going up. So all of these things are actually helping transform the organization. And if privacy is a concern, we don't want it to be a concern because we have been intentional about privacy by design. And if there are any questions, you should definitely reach out to us, and we can help you answer all these privacy questions. So thank you very much. Yep. Any questions? Yes, please. If you can, talk to the mic, please.
So if you do an exercise with workplace analytics and you get some trends,
Yes.
can you then use MyAnalytics to drive the improvements in behavior, or is MyAnalytics just a standard configured product?
No, absolutely. So the feature that you just asked is what we call solutions. Noel today is going to do a session on exactly that, where you're able to find a trend for the group, and then you say, again, you go to the group, you talk to them, you say, hey, we think that there is room for improvement. Do you guys want to be part of this program? Let's say to reduce after hours, for example, and the group decides together that yes, they want to be part of it, they opt into it, and then their MyAnalytics experience automatically changes, it adapts, and you'll see programs, you'll see habits, and not just light up that are specific to that particular metric that you want to improve. Perfect. So yes, we are connecting the both of them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, one of your earlier slides had a comment that workplace analytics is not looking at or tracking attachments.
Correct.
However, I've seen 2 demos of workplace by our account teams, and both times they said that one of the things that workplace does is it tracks the digital dust of people, in quotes, so to speak, and that includes tracking attachments, where attachments are going, how broadly they get distributed, and how they're coming back to that same user to identify better ways to collaborate versus just trying to edit attachments via email. Could you explain that?
Yes, please. So again, the devil's in the details over here. In workplace analytics, we do not look at the content of the email, the content of the meeting, or attachments. Whereas in MyAnalytics, because it is your mailbox, again, we know that you've been sending that, and so we surface it only to you, right? So the example that you just gave, the scenario that we're interested in is, hey, you've spent a lot of time working on this document, right? And you've spent a lot of time working on the status email. You've sent this out, you want it to be, spread as much as you want. How much has it spread, right? Okay. And so that information is available only to you, and the one that I showed earlier where we share, it's a 50% reach, or high reach, low reach, and so that is the intentional design slide that I had earlier, where only you have access to that data, because it is part of MyAnalytics.
Okay, so workplace analytics has no information whatsoever with regards to attachments?
No.
Okay.
No. Yep.
Okay.